Hello, friends. It's Kirby Russia, and we're going to be talking a little bit about North Korea because, one of the reasons to learn the Russian language at a very high level is being able to hear really different political opinions. And I watched a pretty interesting interview recently with from an expert in Korea, and he pointed out some things. So let's talk about what he had to say. And don't worry, I'm not going to translate anything. I don't get into that translating stuff game. That's not my business. Now, the one thing I thought that was very poignant is basically this interview with this one guy. His name, by the way, is Andrei, Lankov. And apparently he is he has a doctorate degree in Asian studies with a specialty in Korea. So he knows what he's talking about. So anyways, he had this really neat discussion. And he believes that North Korea has made a major shift in their internal political rhetoric. So we'll get to that. So one of the interesting things about it is that this first sign, in his opinion, that the rhetoric within North Korea shifted coming this year. Remember, Putin and Kim Jong-un have had a lot of meetings. There seems to be a lot of partnership. Things in Eurasia are changing, friends. And we see that it says North Korea tears down monument symbolizing union with the South. So this big expensive monument, which is actually quite, the picture doesn't really do it justice, they got rid of. And as I was watching this interview, basically Mr. Lankov explained that within Korea, they used to always sort of project this idea that the South Koreans were sort of maybe the victims of U.S. imperialism, or they were sort of duped. Basically, he sort of put, gave them a sort of innocent role in all of this stuff. The entire Korean regime, even before Un, all the Kims did. Until recently, until 2024, and now it's pretty crazy because he said the rhetoric is the opposite. That essentially, after, this year upon year, decade after decade of talking about, reunification, building even giant monuments, making movies about it, all this other stuff, apparently reunification is dead. And that's why with this RT article, at first you read this and you're like, it's time to prepare for war, North Korean leader. Who cares? North Korea says all sorts of stuff. And over the years, they've said all sorts of stuff. What does it matter? But when you actually listen to, in Russian, this guy who has, that doctorate degree, who's been to North Korea, who really knows what he's talking about, he did a really good job of explaining how there's been a titanic shift in all of this rhetoric. And that this time, things might actually be different, There's always a point where it was like with the Russians. Russia always backed down whenever the West was aggressive towards it. Always backed down, always backed down, always backed down until February 2022. Then all of a sudden, it didn't. And maybe with the North Koreans, this is kind of the same thing where for decades they're like, well, let's push for reunification. Well, then the South Koreans really aren't to blame. And now in 2024, things are changing. They can see the decline of the United States, the rise of Russia and especially China. And they're like, yeah, maybe now might be our one and only chance coming up here. So this time, in this particular instance, based on the fact that the entire logic of North Korean internal propaganda, and one thing that Mr. Lankov said in the interview that confirms, the stereotypes about North Korea is that there's a lot of propaganda there. And that propaganda has now completely changed, okay? Because, sometimes I can kind of compare North Korea to Russia in the way it's treated by the mainstream media, and the fact is that people don't really know what's happening in either country, and they just make stuff up. I think Korea gets it even worse because it's even more shut off and doesn't have a counter voice, so you can make up basically anything about North Korea, and they can't do much to counteract it. Russia at least has RT, and it's pretty cool and trendy, so there's a lot of people on the internet, maybe like myself, would be willing to make videos to fight against obvious lies against Russia. North Korea doesn't really have that. So you can always just make stuff up with North Korea. But anyways, besides that point, we are in the danger zone. Because as I've mentioned before, I think that we're in sort of a soft World War III. Because we already have, we had the first front was the war in Ukraine. Then there were weird things, like there were some border conflicts, like between Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, something like that. I forget the specifics. But Taiwan is in a very tense state right now, very tense. The Syrian question was kind of always on the table, but now Israel has exploded, so you already have our sort of second front in this soft world war, because, you know, the BRICS, the global south, do you think they're on Israel's side or Palestine's side? So we already sort of have two fronts in this global war, and who knows? Again, maybe Kim thinks it's time, because you know we keep talking again about in the media. About how critical it is that, you know, Russia and China have a partnership, and it is critical, and it's been, I think, mutually beneficial to both societies. But we also forget that there's a bit of a mutual benefit between North Korea and Russia. Is that North Korea, one of their big industries, because of being sanctioned into oblivion, is actually to profit off their own migrant laborers. So, like, North Korea sends migrant laborers sort of in organized packs to work in other places to send the money back home. A very interesting methodology. And that's where some people think where basically that's how the Kremlin is going to get rid of its problematic sort of badly behaved hillbilly Central Asian migrant workers, and use a lot of North Korean migrant workers who are respectful, well behaved, work in a somewhat official, well, somewhat really do work in an official capacity. So there's a definite big economic deals going between Russia and North Korea. And who knows, maybe if North Korea thinks it might actually have to really switch to wartime mode, well, it's in a very good partnership with the resource king of the world, and I think the manufacturing king of the world, although they've, from what I always hear from experts, China does not really like North Korea very much. But anyways, I'm sure they like North Korea a lot more than they like Washington, after all the scandals and problems and shenanigans that have been going on since the monopolar moment in 1991. So anyways, who knows? I thought that interview was really something sort of eye-opening. And guys, no, I'm not going to translate it. People always, whenever I mention something I saw in Russian, I hate translating stuff, and it takes an insane amount of time. I'm not going to do it. Unless you want to pay me one heck of a donation. So anyways, Tim Kirby Russia signing out.